Fellow Toastmasters guests, let me ask you a couple questions. How many of you have ever struggled writing a speech? How many of you have ever struggled delivering a speech? If you raise your hand, you're not alone. It's a fact that over 73% of people have a fear of public speaking. It's the number one fear in the world. And I believe that the problem's bigger than anxiety, depression, shyness. I believe the reason that people have a number one fear of public speaking is simply because they do not know how to write a speech and they do not know how to deliver it in an effective manner. Well, today my goal is for you to be able, after this session, to write your speech in an effective, organized way and deliver it in an effective manner. And I'm going to give you 11 steps to help you write your speech, to help you deliver it, but most of all, help you connect with the audience. Because if there's one golden rule, it's this. It's not about you when you're giving your speech. It's about the audience and what they get out of your speech. If the audience doesn't get anything out of your speech is irrelevant. That's just the truth. So you want to be able to use these tools to connect with the audience. It's about connecting with the audience. Let's start with the objectives of this presentation before we get into 11 steps. So my 4 goals for you is to help you organize your speech, to help you use vocal variety, to help you use strong gestures, and most of all, connect with the audience. So those are the 4 objectives. Let me start with another question for you before we begin. How many of you get nervous before giving a speech? How many of you get nervous before delivering a speech? And there's no right and wrong answers. Just answer it to the best of your ability. But let's start with step number 1. And step number 1 is knowing your topic inside and out. I don't care how smart you are, how great you are. If you don't come across like you're the expert when you're delivering your speech, if you don't come across like you know what you're talking about, then the speech that you delivered is irrelevant. That's just the truth. You're not going to be able to connect with the audience. And remember what the golden rule is. It's not about you when you're speaking. It's about the audience and what they get out of your speech. So in order for you to connect with the audience, you have to know what you're talking about. So talk about what you know. If you have a passion for basketball, talk about basketball. If you have a passion for baseball, talk about baseball. If you have a passion to fish, talk about fishing. Talk about what you know. Talk about what gets you excited. Talk about what gets you going. Because when you have a passion for what you're talking about, it's going to come across. And that's how you're going to connect with the audience. There's no better way to connect with the audience than knowing what you're talking about and delivering it with passion. I have a passion for public speaking. I want everyone to be able to deliver a speech because we need to hear more stories about you. We need to hear them. Right now, people are struggling. People need to be inspired. So there's no better way to inspire people than talking about your story. So talk about what you know. Don't fake it. I could tell within 5 minutes of a speech if the person really knows what they're talking about or they're just kind of winging it. That's not what you want to do. You want to talk about what you know, because if you do, you're going to get great results. And then obviously step 2, get to the point. What is the point of your speech? And I know it sounds easy, but before you could even write your speech, what is the point? Why are you delivering the speech? That's important. You have to have a point. And that may sound easy, but I've seen a few Toastmasters in my clubs. They'll get up there and they sound really intelligent when they're delivering their speech, but there's one thing. They're all over the map. They don't have a point to their speech. I have a friend of mine that he'll start off talking about real estate, and then he'll talk about when he was a horse whisperer. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he's all over the map. You have to have a point of why you're delivering a speech. If you don't have a point, then there's no way you're going to be able to write your speech in an organized way. And if you can't write your speech in an organized way, how do you expect to deliver it in an effective manner? How do you expect to connect with the audience? You're not going to be able to. That's why you have to have a point. So before you could even start writing your speech, before you could even deliver your speech, you have to ask yourself that question. Why am I giving this speech? What is the point? The point of me giving this presentation is to have you say, yes, I can write a speech. Yes, I can deliver it in an effective manner. That's the point of why I'm giving this presentation tonight. Let's move on to step 3. Step 3, this is where we get into writing our speech. And I've seen many people write their speech in several manners. And there's no really right or wrong way to write your speech. It's whatever works best for you. But I have to tell you, this system that I'm about to share with you, I've seen it work over and over and over again. When you're delivering a speech, your objective is this. You want to make it as simple as possible for yourself so that you could be able to deliver it in an effective manner. Sometimes I'll see speakers that write their speech so complex that they get lost in the middle of their speech. And that's not what you want for you to happen. You want to be able to deliver that speech in an effective manner and be able to connect with the audience, because it's not about you when you're delivering a speech. It's about the audience and what they get out of it. If the audience doesn't get anything out of it, it's irrelevant. So how do you write a speech? I believe in the essay format. And this essay format is something that we used in high school. Remember when we were taught how to write an essay? Have an intro, have 3 points, have a strong conclusion. And I've seen this work over and over when I mentor people in Toastmasters. About 7 years ago, I had an opportunity to mentor one of my friends, and she was shy. You want to talk about a person that was shy. If you walk into the room, you wouldn't even realize she was there. That's how shy she was. However, I went over this system. I said, if you write your speech in an organized way, use the essay format, have an intro, 3 points, and a strong conclusion, you're going to be successful in delivering your speech. You really are. You will be able to deliver that speech in an effective manner. So she used that essay format. She had an intro, 3 points, a strong conclusion, and guess what happened? When she delivered her icebreaker, that first speech that we deliver in Toastmasters, she delivered with ease and with confidence that everyone thought she was a professional speaker. It was amazing. And it was amazing watching her deliver the speech. This was a shy person. This is a person that, again, you could walk in a room and you wouldn't even realize she was there. But because she used that system, she was able to deliver her speech in an effective manner. And it was easy for her to follow. She didn't even have to use any notes. Because see, when you know what you're talking about, you don't have to use notes. You can deliver it like that. And that's what speaking's all about. Being able to deliver with ease, but being able to connect with the audience. I had another young man, and this man was very interesting. He just got into real estate, but he didn't like it. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to be a public teacher. He wanted to teach high school. But he had a problem with speaking. He would get nervous. I mentored him. I gave him the same format to use. And when he delivered his icebreaker, he delivered with ease and with confidence. Everyone thought he was a professional speaker. So this system works. Even now today on Zoom, I've had an opportunity to mentor this young woman who's on Zoom. And let me tell you, she is amazing. She's been using the system and it's been working for her without any issues. So this works. And it's real easy to use. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I'm talking about my favorite store is Walmart. I'm going to start off the speech with an intro. How many of you have ever shopped at Walmart? Ask the audience a question. Get them going, because that gets them connected right away with your speech. You get them involved. 3 points. Why do I love shopping at Walmart? 1, the prices are low. 2, the customer service is great. The employees are great. And 3, it's easy to leave the parking lot. So those would be the 3 points that I give. And then I ended by a strong conclusion. It could be as simple as this. Who's now ready to shop at Walmart and save money, enjoy customer service, and most of all, be able to get out of the parking lot with ease? That's how you can write your speech. Nice and simple, especially if you're writing a 5 to 7 minute speech. But you could also use a system if you're delivering a 15-minute speech, if you're delivering a 30-minute speech, or you're delivering an hour speech. So this is a system that works, and I highly recommend you use the system, and I believe you'll get great results when you deliver your speech. Of course, step 4. What is step 4? How to say it. Oh, I love how to say it. Now, most people assume when they hear how to say it, it's about grammar, and it is. Obviously, you want to use correct grammar when you're delivering your speech. However, how to say it is really having the ability to reduce your filler words. How many of us have Toastmasters have heard filler words? So, you know. And when we hear them out there in society, it just annoys us, doesn't it? We get frustrated with hearing the ahs, the ums, the so's, you knows, the buts, the ands. We don't want to hear them. How do you reduce those filler words? Obviously, going to a Toastmaster meeting is number one on a regular basis, right? You have an ah counter. You have someone to keep track of your ahs, your ums, your so's, your no's. Another way, though, is to use what I like to call techniques like recording your speech, videotaping your speech, going back and actually seeing what you do when you deliver a speech. That's how you are going to reduce your filler words. It really is. You have to be willing to practice, practice, practice. I'm always amazed that Toastmaster members will come to a meeting and they'll raise their hand and say, I'll speak at the next meeting. And then the next meeting they cancel because they feel like they're not ready or they feel like they need more time. Then they'll schedule themselves again. Okay, I'll speak the following week. Following week comes. Oh, no, I can't speak because I'm not ready. I thought I was ready, but I'm not going to be ready. But this time for sure, I'll be ready. And they keep going through that pattern. And before you know it, they're not practicing. If you want to be an effective public speaker, especially if you want to be a paid speaker, you have to practice, practice, practice. That's how you're going to get better. And I always tell my Toastmaster buddies, you should be willing to give a speech once a month in your club. Now, if you're one of those clubs that meets just once a month or twice a month, then give a speech every other month. But you should be willing to speak as often as possible. That's how you're going to get better. You're not going to get better by just winging it. You're not going to get better by just speaking every 6 months. You're going to get better by practicing, practicing, practicing. If you want to reduce your filler words, you have to have the ability to practice, practice, practice. Record yourself. Listen to yourself. Do whatever you have to do, and I guarantee you, you will reduce those filler words because when you reduce those filler words, you're at your best. Remember that. Step 5, your body speaks. Gestures. I love gestures. Gestures are great because a strong gesture can have an impact on your speech. It can add that flavor for you to connect with the audience. Because what's the golden rule? It's not about you when you're speaking. It's about the audience and what they get out of it. If the audience doesn't get anything out of it, then what you've delivered is irrelevant. It really is. And I'm a true believer in that. You want to be able to deliver your speech in an effective manner. And how do you do it? By using gestures. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I saw this person in a contest who was competing actually fall down flat in his face. And I was amazed. I couldn't believe that he fell. I thought at first it was an accident. But it turns out he did it on purpose because the point of the speech is sometimes we fall down. That's just the truth. We have moments in our life when we fall down and we could choose to stay there and feel sorry for ourselves, or we can get back up. But what ended up happening, he ended up winning that contest. And I believe it was that gesture that helped him connect with the audience. Because who can't relate to falling down, right? And if you could physically do it in your speech, it adds that flavor that you need to be successful. Remember that. It adds that flavor for you to be successful. Let me give you some other examples. If I said I picked up the flower like this versus I picked up the flower like that, which one has more of an impact? The first one, right? If I said she gave me a nice big hug versus she gave me a nice big hug, which one has more of an impact? The first example. A strong gesture can add that flavor that you need in your speech. Trust me, I've seen it. But you want to make sure, if you're going to gesture, that the gesture fits with what you're saying. Because if it doesn't, it's going to come across awkward. And sometimes there is such thing as over gesturing. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was actually asked to speak at a California meeting, a Toastmaster club in California, Santa Rosa Toastmasters. I get up there, I give my speech, and everyone says, "Oh, Randy, you did great." And then this next speaker, who happens to also be a distinguished Toastmaster, she delivered her speech with confidence, with ease, well organized. Vocal variety was great. Her gestures, though, were too much. She was all over the map. And because she was all over the map, her evaluator, when she was evaluated by her evaluator, told her, "Look, your speech was great, but you were all over the map. The gestures were just too much." So there is such thing as over gesturing. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure the gestures that you use are strong and are effective with your message and with the ability of you connecting with the audience. Because what's the golden rule? The golden rule is not about you when you're delivering your speech. It's about the audience and what they get out of your speech. Okay, we're going to move on to step 6. Vocal variety. I love vocal variety. Now, the biggest mistake that speakers make is they assume that vocal variety is being as loud as possible. No. Using soft tone, rate, pitch. That is vocal variety. And this is one that I have personally struggled with. When I first started Toastmasters 10 years ago, when we were live, I remember delivering my speech at one of my clubs. And I remember one of the members stood up and said, "No, Randy, you're just too loud." And this is in the middle of my speech, saying that I was too loud, telling me to tone it down. And I did. I learned a very valuable lesson. Now, maybe she should have done that, but nevertheless, I had no choice but to tone it down. She was right. I was too loud, something I had to learn. And then a couple years ago, when we had to go on Zoom for our Toastmaster meetings, I struggled with the same thing. I thought I was right on point when it came to my vocal variety. But someone pointed me out afterwards, said, "Randy, your speech was great, but you were too loud. You were screaming at us." I said, "I was? I didn't even realize it." So it's something that I've had to work on. And it could be hard on Zoom simply because you may think you may be sounding one way, but you actually may be coming across another way. You may not even realize it. So it just takes practice, practice, practice. Remember, it's all about practicing, practicing, practicing. Let me give you some examples of vocal variety. If I said, "She whispered in my ear," versus "She whispered in my ear," which one sounds better? The first one, right? Because a whispered is a soft tone. It's not a loud tone. Next example. If I said the thunderstorm was loud versus the thunderstorm was loud, which one has more of an impact? The first example, right? Because thunderstorms are loud. So just like gestures, you want to make sure the vocal variety that you use right here matches what you're saying. You want to make sure that the vocal variety you use matches with what you're saying. Remember that. So vocal variety is very powerful, and you can use it to your advantage to connect with the audience. That's what it's about, connecting with the audience. So I'm going to ask you another question. Learning these 6 steps, do you feel more comfortable delivering a speech? So learning these 6 steps, do you feel more comfortable delivering this speech. And there's no right or wrong answer. Just answer it to the best of your ability. Step 7. Research your topic. I love research your topic because I can tell within seconds if a person really did their homework. And obviously, when you think of research your topic, you're talking about a topic using facts, statistics, and that's all true. And you want to use those in your speeches. Definitely. The more statistics and research you have, the better off you'll be in delivering your speech. Here's the biggest mistake that people make. They have the research become the speech. In other words, they focus so much on getting so many statistics that they're not focused on what the goal is, that they forget to use gestures, vocabulary, they forget to write their speech in an organized way. And how do you avoid that? How do you connect with the audience using this? Well, the way you connect with the audience using this is give personal examples. People love personal examples. They love personal stories. They love personal examples. For example, if I was going to talk about how the healthcare system in our countries, the prices are too high. Sure, I give the prices. Sure, I use statistics, but I give a personal story. And let me give you one true story. There was a woman in Denver, Colorado this past summer. She was pregnant. She was given labor. She's driving to the hospital, right? Trying to get there so that she could have her baby. The car literally breaks down. And because she didn't have enough money for the ambulance, which would have cost her $1,000, she had no choice but to walk on foot while she was on labor. So I would use a story like that to add flavor to my point that the healthcare system in our country, the prices are too high. See, that adds more flavor. If I just gave a bunch of statistics, it's going to be great, but it's going to be like, well, how does this connect with us? If you give a personal story, a personal example, that connects with the audience even more so. So use those stories, use personal examples, especially when you're giving a researcher topic. And listen, I know step 1 is knowing your topic. Remember step 1, knowing your topic. And I know at times though, at work, you may be asked, hey, I need you to give a speech on this or this specific topic, and you're going to have to do it. But the key to connecting with the audience, even give a speech like that, is do your research, but also give personal stories. For example, if I was going to talk about COVID-19, sure, I give examples. Sure, I talk about how 800,000 people have died from COVID-19. However, I would add a personal story. For example, there was this guy that got COVID-19 that was in the hospital for 1 month, 1 whole month. When he got out and he was fine, he was given a bill for $1 million. That right there connects with the audience. Oh, I know someone that had COVID-19 and they were in the hospital for that long. I wonder what their medical bill is. You know what I mean? That's how you connect. Or talking about someone that you knew that actually died from COVID-19. That connects with the audience. There are ways for you to connect with the audience, and just giving a bunch of statistics is not the way to go. Use those personal stories, use those personal examples, and you'll be able to connect with the audience. Step 8, getting comfortable with visual aids. Oh, I love visual aids. However, in most of my speeches, I don't use visual aids. And I know most professional speakers that I've talked to, they don't use visual aids either. And there's a reason for that. Don't get me wrong, visual aids are great. And if you're going to use them, you want to make sure to have good, strong visual aids. As a matter of fact, I know a couple of Toastmasters, all their speeches are visual aids. They just love using visual aids. If you're going to use visual aids, make sure you don't have the visual aid become the speech. What do I mean by that? I just see this especially on live Toastmaster meetings where someone give a visual aid speech and they work so hard on developing that visual aid that they would forget the other steps. They forget vocabulary. They forget gestures. They forget eye contact. They forget writing their speech. When you do that, what are the odds of you going to connect with the audience? You're not going to be able to connect with the audience. You have to be able to connect with the audience. And the way to connect with the audience, if you're going to use visual aids, is don't let the visual aid become the speech. You're the speech. In other words, it's your job to connect with the audience. It's your job to make them understand, hey, this is my point. Hey, I want you to get something out of this speech. So you still want to use those other tools. Those other tools are valuable. Visual aids can be great, especially when pointing out a specific point, but they should not be the speech. They shouldn't. You're the speech. You're the one that makes the speech. Remember that. So even if you use visual aids, always make sure to use the other tools. Write your speech in an organized way. Use those gestures. Use that vocal writing, and you'll get great results. I really believe that. Step 9. Step 9 is simple. Persuade with power. I love persuade with power. The biggest mistake that speakers make, they assume they had to persuade the audience to believe in what they believe. And that's just not true. No. You want to make sure that you're always respectful towards your audience. You want to make sure that the audience understands you, understands your beliefs, but that you respect their beliefs. Because there may be a time where you may be talking about politics, religion, or something very controversial, and people are going to have their opinions. But if you respect the audience, then you'll get great results. You'll be able to connect with the audience more. Like some of you may look at this speech and say, this is the worst speech I've ever heard in my life. What is this guy talking about? But there may be one or two of you that may say, you know what? I connected with this speech. I got this speech. Everyone is different. So remember that. If you want to be an effective public speaker, then the way to persuade the audience is to respect them. Let me give you some examples. A few years ago at one of my Toastmaster meetings, I was talking about healthcare. And actually someone stood up in the middle of my speech. This is the middle of my speech and said, no, I can tell you that's not true. And this is why. And he just went on and on and on. Now, in some situations, that would have bothered some people. And maybe they might have gotten into an argument. But with me, I said, okay, let this guy speak. Let him make his point. Respect him. And he'll respect me. And sure enough, I let this person speak. They got to get out their point. And as a result, everything was fine. I still had some people that said, you did a great job with your speech. And that's what public speaking is all about. It's about connecting with people. If you can have one or two people from the audience understand your speech, understand where you're coming from, then that's what persuade with power is all about. It's not about persuading everyone, because the truth is you're not. You're not going to get every single person in the audience. You're just not. And it has nothing to do with your speaking ability or if you weren't organized enough. That's just the way it is. But if you can get one or two people, if you can connect with one or two people in your speech, then you really have done a great job as a public speaker. I really believe that. So remember that. Step 10, inspire your audience. I love inspiring your audience. It's a great feeling when you deliver a speech and then someone comes up to you and said, thank you for your speech. I really enjoyed it. That's what it's about. It's about you inspiring someone to be the best that they can be. That's what connecting with the audience is all about. How do you inspire the audience? By all those other tools that lead up to inspire the audience. By caring about the audience. And what do I mean by caring about the audience? I'm going to give you an example. One of my dearest friends in Toastmasters, professional speaker, about a month ago was at an event. He gave his speech right. And he came back home and he had a message from one of the participants in his speech saying, because of your speech, because of your message, you saved my life. I was this close to committing suicide. You saved my life just by your message. That's powerful. That's what speaking's all about. That's the power of a speech. One speech can have an impact on someone's life. One speech can change someone's life. So that's what it's about. I'm telling you, all of you here have a story to share. I guarantee if you share that story, you're going to inspire a few people to say, you know what? Because of Kathy's speech, I'm better off. Because of John's speech, I'm better off. That is the power of public speaking. That is the power inspiring people. You inspire them by getting them involved in the speech, continuing to ask questions towards the audience. Because if you do that, they're going to listen. If you show that you care about the audience, that's not just about you when you're delivering the speech, when you're doing that workshop, you're going to get great results. You're going to inspire someone. You're not going to inspire everyone again. You're not. But if you can inspire two or even one person, then you really have done your job as a speaker. So that's step 10. Step 11, I don't think I've mentioned it, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it. Practice. If you want to be an effective speaker, you have to practice, practice, practice. You have to put the time and energy to practice your public speaking skills. You do. And I'm not just talking about setting up once a month, like I mentioned earlier. I'm talking about practicing at home. When you know that you have to give a speech, you should take time to practice your speech. Because even though this isn't a class setting atmosphere in Toastmasters where you have a teacher, you have someone grading you, practicing should be your homework as a public speaker if you want to be an effective public speaker. And I know some of you, I've talked to some of you guys want to be professional speakers. You want to get paid the big bucks. Well, you're not going to get paid the big bucks if you don't practice, practice, practice. I used to have a woman in one of my Toastmasters club that was inspiring to be a public speaker. And she said to me, she said, oh, Toastmasters doesn't teach you how to be a public speaker. And she wasn't wrong for what she was saying. But you know what Toastmasters offers you? The ability to practice, practice, practice. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a Toastmaster meeting, especially lately, where someone will just cancel the last minute. That's a perfect opportunity for you to raise your hand and say, you know what? Sign me up. I can give a speech. If you use these tools, you should be able to come up with a speech like that. You should. It shouldn't be difficult for you to come up with a speech. Talk about what you know. When you talk about what you know, it comes easy to you. I've had many professional speakers tell me flat out, I could talk about sports all day. I could talk about basketball. I could talk about baseball. I could talk about all these things. And you know what? They could. But they are willing to put themselves out there and practice, practice, practice. And you have to do the same thing. Now, I know not all of you want to be a professional speaker, but I know all of you came here to either overcome your fear of public speaking or to be a more effective public speaker. Well, there is no other way than to practice, practice, practice. Practice once a month in your club. And by the way, there are other places like the Rotary Club, church, organizations that you can practice your public speaking skills. Because I guarantee you, you're going to touch someone and you're not even going to realize it. And right now, dealing with COVID-19, global warming, all of those things, we have the ability to touch people with their speeches. And they have the ability to touch others with their speeches. Remember that. You can do it. You can deliver your speech in an effective manner, but you have to be willing to practice, practice, practice. So those are 11 steps. I'm going to give you 2 additional, what I like to call golden rules of public speaking. So not only have you gotten the 11 steps, we're now going to move on to giving you 2 additional golden rule steps. And it starts with step 1, anything can happen. Anything can happen. You have to realize that. In other words, you might be on Zoom and you may go down. I was at a speech contest where I competed where actually I was muted in the middle of my speech. I was delivering my speech and I was literally muted. I wasn't prepared for that. But things like that happen. Technology breaks down. You have to be prepared for anything. If you've done all these 11 steps, you're going to be prepared. You'll be able to deal with anything. You might be in an event and you did such a good job. They may ask you to speak again. You may be, what? You want me to speak again? Yes, you have to be willing to speak anywhere, anytime, any place. And if you're prepared, you'll be able to do that. If you use these tools, you'll be able to speak anywhere, all day if you need to. You have the ability. But you also have to realize anything can happen. Let me give you an example. One of my dearest friends in Toastmasters, professional speaker, said that he was scheduled to give like a 3-hour workshop. He goes there, he's prepared, and they were having issues with the technology. Well, the last minute they tell him, we're going to have to cut your speech to 10 minutes. So he went from 3 hours to 10 minutes. Now, he could have freaked out. He could say, wait a minute, I was ready for 3 hours. But he looked at this person and said, it'll be the best 10 minutes you ever heard. And that's the type of attitude you have, because anything can happen. You have to remember that anything could happen. Technology can break down. You may have a visual aid speech, and your visual aid may not be working. You have to move on. If you're prepared, if you've done your homework, if you're well organized, you'll be able to deal with those changes. It's the people that are not prepared. It's the people that thought, oh, they were going to wing it. And all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Anything can happen. You have to remember that. So you have to be prepared. And that's the key. Be prepared, because anything could happen. So I'm going to ask you a third question. Do you feel that you can memorize your speech, or do you still feel you need to you can write your speech? So do you feel more comfortable memorizing your speech, or do you still feel you need to read your speech? And there's no right or wrong answer, because even the president uses notes. So you can use notes. In Toastmasters, we talk about not using notes. I respectfully disagree with that. You can use notes, whatever works. But the main thing is, if you're going to use notes, again, use that essay format, and you can't go wrong. Make it simple for yourself if you're going to use notes. But there's really no wrong or right answer. It's whatever works best for you. So let's get to the golden rule number 2. And I don't think I've mentioned this, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it. Connect with the audience. That's what it's about. It's about connecting with the audience. But how do you specifically connect with the audience? You connect with the audience by getting them involved. Every intro that I do, whether it's a 5 to 7 minute speech, whether it's a 40-minute speech, whether it's an hour speech, I always do this. I always ask the audience a question, because that gets them involved, right? How many of you have ever been in a classroom where the teacher was so boring that you fell asleep? I know I have. Especially those early morning meetings. You remember those early morning meetings where you get up, you literally fall asleep? That's happened to me because the teacher was boring. The teacher never asked us any questions. They just spoke for the whole hour. Who wants to hear someone speak for the whole hour, right? But if you get them engaged, if you get them excited, then you're going to connect with the audience, because it shows that you care. Because again, it's not about you when you're delivering a speech. It's about the audience. If the audience doesn't get anything out of your speech, then everything you've done at this point is irrelevant. That's just the truth. It's irrelevant. You want to be able to connect with the audience, asking them questions, getting them involved in your speech, giving them a call to action at the end, telling jokes. That's how you get them involved. You're not going to get them involved by just speaking the whole hour. Who wants to listen to someone speak the whole entire hour? Right? I don't care how great of a public speaker you are. That could get boring real quick. Getting them involved, getting them excited, saying this speech isn't about me, it's about you. That's what it's about. That's how you connect. You show that you care about the audience. I've given thousands of speeches. Frankly, I'm not speaking for myself like I used to. I'm speaking to connect with people. I want as many public speakers out there sharing their story, sharing their struggles, sharing their hurt, sharing how they overcame their obstacles. That's what I want you to be able to do, not only for yourself, but for others. Have that aha moment. I get it. That's how you connect with the audience. And that's what it's about, ladies and gentlemen. It's about connecting with the audience. I'm going to ask you one final question. Would you be willing to speak once a month? It's a yes or no. There's no right or wrong answers. Would you be willing to speak once a month? At your Toastmaster club or Rotary club or any organization? It doesn't have to be Toastmasters. Speak anywhere. I hope that these tools will make you understand how vital it is for you to be successful as a public speaker. That's my whole objective right there. Because I know these tools will help. I've seen it over and over. But it doesn't matter if I tell you these tools, if I tell you every trick, if you don't use them, if you don't apply them. Because at the end of the day, most of us came to Toastmasters saying we want to be better, effective public speakers. We didn't come here saying we want to be effective leaders. Now, for people like me that have been Toastmasters for a while, we understand that leadership and public speaking go together. So you can't be an effective leader if you're not an effective public speaker. Look at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He became an effective leader because he was an effective public speaker, effective communicator. So they go hand in hand. So I hope you'll take these steps and say, you know what? I can use these steps. You know what? I can do it. If Randy can do it, I can do it. You know what? Randy's right. I have a story to share. I have a message. Because there's no better feeling, just like my friend, when he saved someone's life because of his message, because of his speech. That's the power we have as public speakers. It's always amazing to me that the number one fear is public speaking. 73% have a fear of public speaking. And I believe the problem is simply this. They don't know how to write their speech, and they do not know how to deliver it in an effective manner. I hope you realize that you can do this and spread the word. So I want to leave you with this. Who is now ready to write their speech? Who is now ready to deliver their speech in an effective manner? Who is ready to inspire others and motivate them to being the best that they can be?